Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Good morning and welcome to Guardian Radio AM. Today is Monday, July 17th, until after 11 o'clock in the morning. Once again, this is C.A. Newry and I shall be your host for the day as we continue our series of what happens next post July 10th, 2023. Actually, today's series, I actually have a voice note. I'm having a series of conversation online, on social media, and of course, on Guardian Radio AM, about Bahamian culture. What we should be doing. Should we be defining ourselves? What is our next step? And of course, while I was having this conversation on social media, I got a voice note that made me stop in my tracks. And I said, man, this needs to be shared. This needs to be shared. This needs to be hashed out because what I find happening to us is that due to our lack of explaining who we are, detailing who we are, recording who we are, celebrating who we are, we tend to grab at straws to embrace every and anything. And then by extension, we tend to gravitate to other people's culture to say, no, this is we embracing this because our culture is evolving. And I said, no, that ain't evolving. You copying. Stop copying. Let's be our authentic self. So I'm signaling the producer because I want this voice note to be played. Right? And when I transition from that, I want to have a discussion about something that is circulating inside the news, still have to do with culture, still have to do something to do with our independence and celebrating we self, about a narrative I never heard before, but I'm going to hash it out. I'm going to hash it out because I haven't heard anyone on the talk show circuit hashing it out yet. And of course, when I hash in those things, I tend to bring in Erin Green. And even though she's not inside here yet, she says she's coming back. So join me to hash out this news clip. But before that, let's go to the voice note and start this conversation, and then we'll transition into that news clip. But this is by Darren. He's a culturalist. And we were speaking back and forth, having a conversation about culture. And I said, this is something that the entire Bahamas needs to hear. So go ahead, play those two clips.
She made a very good point in her opening statement as to say one of the reasons why our cultural traditions is dying is because we don't teach it. And that is the linchpin. That is the foundation. That is the root. Regardless of how you fight out front here or fighting now, if it's not being supported and strengthened from the foundation as it's being taught, it's always going to be eroded by foreign. One of the reasons why we've seen this inculcation and this adoption of other foreign countries' cultures is because we have not taught our own. We have not taught our kids who are now 30. We have not taught, or even 50 from 1973. After the great national campaign to usher in independence, it stopped right there. It just stopped. It died out. After about 10, 15 years, everything stopped. That's why you have kids today who are amazed when you talk about lignum vitae and all of these stuff. Go back to my point. You can fight all you want at the front. The root and the foundation, all of this is, the fight is have to get the foundation of who we are, who we is in schools. It has to be taught. Just like how the Independence Secretariat had all these events leading up to the 50th, we need a continuous national campaign. Probably not on this scale with so much going on, but we need it to continue. It doesn't continue and it dies off. That's why everybody else know reggae. and everybody else knows soca. Why? There's a continuous national pumping of that in our veins. What we pumping in the Bahamian veins? What we pumping into the Bahamian veins is it's okay to accept foreign culture. It's okay to evolve. It's okay to infuse. It's okay to add all of these things. But it's not okay to learn and value and appreciate who you are because we don't teach it. And some things you don't have to say with your mouth. You say with your actions. And I always tell people, you teach what you value.
And culture is how we live, what we do naturally. But there are a number of persons who say the Bahamian culture is under attack. And there are a number of persons who say, no, it's not under attack. The Bahamian culture is evolving. And it's evolving. That's why we have now reggae being played at our cultural spots. It's evolving. That's why we have vocabulary words as fet happening in our cultural spot. And it's evolving. This is why our Jonknu sound is sounding very Americanist, or what they call fanfare. And when you bring this up, people say, no, man, our culture is evolving. Our culture here is strong. How we see ourselves is already solidified. There's no need to be concerned. There's no need to have some sort of affirmative action to promote Bahamian culture, to make sure Bahamian culture is able to compete on a equal and standing platform as these other cultures that is permeating the Bahamas at this present time. But this is where I bring Aaron in, right? The voice note, the speaker, Darren, said that Bahamian culture needs to be taught in school. On Wednesday, I plan to have Nicolette Bethel in studio, and we're going to debate on whether the Bahamian dialect is a Creole language or is it just a dialect. And I'm going to challenge her. I'm going to invite you to be here for that too, because I want us to challenge Dr. Nicolette Bethel on whether her thesis that we have evolved to be a language that is an independent or parallel language to the English language, which can be dubbed as a Bahamian language, Creole, or is it a dialect of the original language of English? But I'm not going to talk about that yet. I'm going to talk about, is Ministry of Culture, who's responsible for our culturalness, our cultural identity, promoting, pushing, and ensuring that we thrive, are they doing enough to promote Bahamian culture? I said recently on my social media page platform that what happened for this year, this last 2-3 months by the Independence Day Secretariat, perhaps, maybe, it's possible that they have eclipsed all of the activities for the last 50 years that Ministry of Culture has done to promote, electrify Bahamian culture, right? Their push to educate us about our past, their push to celebrate our culture, their push to make us understand we self is not being done by the Ministry of Culture. And in fact, a Ministry of Culture needs to step up and perhaps need to be formed into an independent ministry. And I want you to comment on that, Aaron.
Well, good morning, Bahamas. Thank you for having me on Guardian Radio AM. This morning, protocol having been established, the first point I was going to make is, of course, we don't have a Ministry of Culture.
We do not have a Ministry of Culture.
I'm not sure if we have a Department of Culture. I think we have a cultural division, Division of Cultural Affairs.
And you say that not flippantly. You say that as a matter of course. This is what we have.
Yeah.
And do Bahamians actually know that we have a division of culture, not necessarily a Ministry of Culture?
Right, but like when you see the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, you would think that, okay, culture gets the same weight, has the same weight as youth and sports. But we know it doesn't. We know the budget isn't equal, or it's not equal. And the first step is, are we taking quote unquote culture seriously at the policy level, at the governmental level? And then the second question is, will anyone take it seriously? Will it be taken seriously if we don't first show its importance at the legislative level and at the policy level, right? Which is something that you pointed out last week. We don't have an official declaration of a national festival, right?
I mentioned that, and I paused you there because I mentioned that again on social media and said there's no need. We already know that we celebrate Junkanoo, so why do we need to enact that in law?
What do you mean, why do we need to enact it in law? We enact it in law to show how important it is, to validate it, right? As it stands now, to me, it appears as if the Ministry of Tourism owns Junkanoo.
It does seem that way.
Right. And I think that if we legislate in law, Junkanoo is a national, right? It's a indigenous African form. Its history is this, right? This is what it means to us. That protects it, right, from bastardization or being taken over by the Ministry of Tourism, right? Or those who would try to make it a component of the tourism product or main component of a tourism product in a way that changes what it fundamentally is, right? And you do that with legislation. I mean, Trinidad, we know that Carnival is important to Trinidad, not just because liquor sales exponentially increase, right? By 100 times, not because the travel it increases, the tourism increases, but because the Trinidadian government has said, hey, this is our national thing. The University UE Trinidad campus has said, hey, Carnival is so important to us. We have courses.
Courses?
Academia has set out to frame it, to define it, to preserve the most important parts of it, and more importantly, to create a space so that it can evolve authentically, right? And so legislating it is an important process.
I find, Aaron, if we fail to define ourselves, there'll be foreigners who will define the Bahamas for us. And this is my case in point. Recently, I did a competition on social media, right? Where I asked, what is the national fruit of the Bahamas? Mm-hmm. And this is where, man, in the fact I can give the answer, but the first person to call and say, I give them 2 minutes before I give them the correct answer, according to
Googles.
To the Googles. What is the Bahamas' national fruit? Call in quickly. You have 2 minutes before we reveal what the answer is, according to the Googles.
Because I know what the answer is.
Yeah, but we ain't gonna say it. We ain't gonna say it. I want the caller. We give them 30, like I said, 60 seconds to call. That's 120 seconds to call in and give their opinion on what the national fruit. But my point is, if we refuse, or if the academics refuse to define us, to make it official, this is a legislative position of the Bahamas that this is who we are. Mm-hmm. Other people around the world will tell us who we are. And we're now finding that is the case.
Right. I had an interesting conversation this weekend. You see, we had Stalid in the studio this morning. I got to send another shout out to the Gladstone Road crew. Mm-hmm. I was by Justin's Grill, right? That's the place where people go to talk. Mm-hmm. They reason and issues of national importance come up. People be talking, right? Mm-hmm. And engaging. And Cat Island man, Rake and Scrape Festival, Isaacs, came and he asked the question, I think the question is like, what is Gombe a genre? Mm. Right? I'm thinking to myself, how could he be asking me if Gombe is a genre?
That's his accent.
Because the Independence Secretariat in their song competition rules said, hey, Gombe is our national music form. And so for the competition, the songs have to be Gombe or a subgenre of Gombe, and they listed folk, Rake and Scrape, and Junkanoo. Mm-hmm. Isaacs, from what he put on the table, none of that makes sense, right? That Rake and Scrape and Junkanoo couldn't be derivatives of Gombe, a music form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've made that point, but I want you to finish that point so I can go to the caller.
And so I'm sitting here now, left weighing what it is that Isaacs, a culture man, a music man, put on the table with what it is I've garnered from around me, right? And then I realize, have we legislated? Have we said in legislation what our national, right, what our national music forms are?
No, we haven't. There's no identification of such things. We are in limbo. We are leaf blowing inside the wind as to who we are and where we're going. So when you, even in the conversation we're going to have on Wednesday, when you speak of whether the Bahamas language it has a Creole, is a Creole language, you need to bring proof. You just don't say it on whim. Say, because we have 3 words that are independent or sound from Africa, it makes us a Creole. I say you need to explain and detail it. But let's go to this caller right now. Producer Patrick, caller through. Go ahead, caller.
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful, thank you. I mean, according to Google, I know that's what you guys are looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And according to Google, I see they have Aki.
And caller, you won't get this prize, right? And the flippancy of it, right, is what we are going to have a conversation about. Someone decided that since the Bahamas does not have a national fruit, we can give them a national fruit, and that national fruit can be Aki, and we can enjoy it. and that's what it'll be. But leave your number with the producer.
Yes.
And your name and a number, and then Aaron and I will continue this conversation, right? Imagine.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure, and thank you very much for listening. Go ahead, ma'am. I'm sorry.
I was just saying that it was so surprising when I saw that. I said, let me look and see what Google says.
Yeah, and I appreciate you Googling that, because that's what we can talk about today, right now. Thank you very much, ma'am. Leave your number.
You.
It's the audacity, Aaron, that Aki is the Bahamas' national fruit. And few Bahamians know what Aki is.
But listen, first of all, it's the audacity that somebody thought that they could put online that Aki is a Bahamian national fruit, because it's not.
If you go and search our national food, someone decided to give us the national food also.
Right, but when
You'd be surprised what that is.
When I went to the government website, when I was searching for the trivia question I had a couple of months ago, in July, the top of July, what are the national symbols? There are 9 national symbols.
Mm-hmm.
National fruit is not on the list.
Because there's no national fruit.
Right, national dish is not on the
Because
list.
there's no national dish.
National festival is not on
Because there's no national festival.
National music form is not on
There's no national music form in the Bahamas. We have none.
Yeah, there is none. And so while the texter got the right answer, go online and see what the world says or somebody out there says, and the truth is there is none.
See how the world marks our manner and our banners waving high.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm having these series of conversations. I'm going to try to have this conversation throughout the week. And even as I said, this is July 10th plus day 3 posts, right? That whether the academia, whether the politicians who legislate law is failing us, or are we failing ourselves by not demanding that such happen?
Both. Not just not demanding that such happens, but in the absence of such things being created, we are not creating them ourselves. Like, we want to sit and talk about how important these things are. And worse, we want to denigrate people who don't know things that we think they should know, but we refuse to acknowledge that the systems that should exist, that people glean knowledge from, do not exist. How do you claim you're an expert? How do you claim you're an expert if I can't find any evidence of your expertise?
We can hash that out, because Wednesday coming and Nicolette Bell will be here. We can hash that out. But the lines all the lines are blinking. Let's patch that caller through, producer. Go ahead, caller.
Hello?
Hello, go ahead.
Yeah, my name was invoked in a very passionate subject, so I feel compelled to chime in and bring clarity, and hopefully with this discourse and starting off this discussion, we would right ourselves and make things right with ourselves. We have been debating Gombe and what it is for quite some time.
Yes,
Gombe,
sir. Morning.
Gombe is something that is owned by the public U.S., copywritten. I challenge anyone, and I don't care who you are, prove me wrong otherwise. Give me the instrumentation, the music, and the sound of gumbe. There is none. Ask me to define the key instruments for both Junkanoo and rake and scrape. Immediately, your mind would go when it comes to Junkanoo. Its first thing is the goatskin drum. We share that in common with rake and scrape and Junkanoo. Thereafter, Junkanoo separates itself with the whistles, the horns, and our original infusion of an instrument that hung around the cow neck so that the blind farmers at night could know whether their cow is straying in their pasture. It's called a cowbell.
Mm-hmm.
So those are key instrumentation that collectively bring out a unique sound that we define as Junkanoo. And Junkanoo is not just the sounding or the music that is, it's a visual expression of our culture that stems from our slave ancestry and our forced ejection from Africa. So here is a cultural expression with an Afrocentric base infused with the necessities, and necessity is the mother of all invention, that we use as a cultural expression that's inseparable
And I appreciate
from our culture. And then rake and scrape comes along, and over successive generations, we got rid of the gumby and we put our Bahamian saw, screwdriver, or old bread knife there. So now you have a genre that is pretty young, only named since 1964, and only taken seriously since 1992. That is expressive, and no Bahamian artist today with any relative success is without inclusion of mostly rake and scrape and Junkanoo.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And mind you, I would challenge the caller.
So this is Cat Island's Isaacs. Sydney Isaacs, Cat Island Rake and Scrape Festival. Thank you for calling in, because I call your name.
Because I remember when Rake and Scrape was adopted in the Bahamas and was named by Charles Carter. It's something new. It's a new concept in the Bahamas, even though we claim it as always being here.
Now, was it a new concept, or was it that
the Turks Islands, they brought it here. They claim it. This is why they...
Hold on, but why...
They have an older narrative of it.
There's another element, right?
Nothing wrong with that.
No, here's another element. When you say Turks Islanders brought it here, I'm thinking that's a nationality is a political construct.
I remember when Turks Island was Jamaican.
I remember when Turks Island was Bahamian, because half my family is Turks Island.
I remember when Turks Island was Bermudian.
Right, and so...
They mix up.
So are we allowing politics to supersede culture? Or right? Or people, because a political decision to rename a territory or redraw a territory doesn't change necessarily the culture of the people automatically. It doesn't automatically say, okay, well, that music can no longer be Bahamian because these people ain't a part of the Bahamas anymore.
Yes, but mind you, I would still challenge the caller that gumbe does exist, because I know the sound, and gumbe can be duplicated and put to music. I'm not sure necessarily that Junkanoo can do the same.
Now, I think the more important thing is this: where is the space for these conversations to take place and to be validated? These are valid, critical debates about culture and who we are.
Yes. But let's go to this next caller, because I want to transition, because I want to play a video I want you to listen to. And I'm telling the producer, get that ready so we can cue that up. But let's go to this caller here. Go ahead, caller.
Godly day. And thanks for allowing me to call in again. But what I want to say is several things, right? The first thing is Jamaican, Aki is Jamaican. Now, we, from children, we realize that we travel all through the bushes, Collins Wall and other places, okay? Mm-hmm. We always knew Aki were Jamaican, okay? Mm-hmm. When it comes to music, our music really is merengue, in which we are getting rid of it today. But I think, Aaron, you need to get Ray Munnins Jr.
Raphael. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and speak
Freddie and them
on it, okay?
Right.
But the other thing is, right? Our national food is really blueberry. When we used to travel through the bushes and stuff as children, We always looking for blueberry.
Lord.
And if we be in the bush all day, the blueberry would keep us up. And although even though we had oranges and apples and grapefruits, because we had a grapefruit tree in our yard, but that wasn't saying anything. Blueberry was the thing, and when a bunch of us youngsters get together and say, let's go in the bush, we go and look for blueberry.
Now, Bremen, is that the little berry that looked like a peach?
The little berry.
That looked like a peach, though.
That's right.
Yeah, there's somebody tell me there's a name for that, but I can't say it on the radio. It starts with ma and pa. That's
Okay.
all. That's all. But I think I've heard about them.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bremen.
And I'm talking about some years back.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? What people are doing, they don't know what's happening, and the people that know, they're getting off the scene, or some of them just dropping it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we all know what's happening.
Thank you very much, Bremen.
You're welcome.
I think that's an important point that Bremen was making, is that people don't know, right?
Yes.
So what came up in this weekend was a lot of people were ridiculing Bahamians who didn't know or forgot that Nassau is the capital. A lot of people, when they heard the song by Elkin 360 Golden Anniversary Bahamas, they thought the song was silly, and people said it. Oh, y'all could be singing this silly song, and y'all know New Providence is the capital of the Bahamas, which turned into this whole ridiculing of people who didn't know Nassau is the capital of the Bahamas. But Bremen makes a point. You got to tell people.
Yes. And this is where we're claiming now. We need an educational program moving forward, indoctrinating Bahamians on why the Bahamas is the best country in the world, and why we should celebrate ourselves and what we have accomplished. And this needs to be done and pushed forward by the Ministry of Culture.
But not even all of that. You just need to so people know who they are.
Yes.
You don't have to automatically put the value on it. So people know who they are, and they will extract the value once they know. But there are those of us who know, and we hold these things like somehow we're going to be special citizens because we know them. But we keep them to ourselves.
I want to read these texts,
Yeah.
and as we go about to transition and play that next video, I want to mention to Bremen that Aki is actually West African, and it came here actually during slavery, and our forefathers brought in Aki, and we were used to eat it in the 1800s, just that later on we forgot that this is something that we should be eating all the time.
The merchant class
Yes.
the merchant class imagination made it very easy for us to forget.
We start eating grits afterwards, right? Anyway, CA, how can people talk about who we are and not mention Africa? To want more Bahamian culture is one thing, but don't make it seem like it is our roots, please. Next text says, what is Bahamian culture anyway? To me, it's unprofessional and corruption. The majority of us seem to understand that culture already because we live it. And this is why we need to have a new educational platform as to who we are, because there are people who only see us as useless. But anyway, let's transition now. And let's...
Oh, you transitioning so quick.
I got it. Go ahead.
Well, you did the second text you read. The second one that you read, when the text, or the first one, the text is say, don't forget, like we forget we are African, almost as if there's no African in Bahamian, right? Of course, the majority of us are from Africa. That is a fundamental part of the heritage and the evolving culture, right? So you can't have Bahamian without African, in the same way you can't have Bahamian without European descent either, right? Because it's an amalgamation of things here.
Yes. And producer, get ready to play that clip right now. I'm just going to read this quick test. It says, just wondering if most other countries' standards are also being defined by Google. And just because someone beat us to Google, does that diminish our heritage? We ain't going to Google.
No, it doesn't diminish our heritage.
We ain't even defining ourselves.
But it indicates that we don't take these things seriously.
We don't want to define ourselves.
Right? There's a musician out there by the name Bahamas. I don't want to diss him. I don't want y'all to think that I diss him. I don't like the music. But I'm biased, right? I'm biased because I don't want to hear anything you have to say because you ain't a Bahamian. Why the audacity to call yourself Bahamas, and there's a whole country of people who are known as Bahamians.
Let's transition now. Let's play that clip because I want us to talk about this. You're playing for it right now. This is from our news, and I just want to play a clip. Go ahead.
When you see this, what first comes to mind?
Frustration. A whole lot of frustration comes to my mind when I see this, yeah.
That's Bishop James Darling explaining how he feels after decades of pleading with the government for what he says he is owed. Bahamian history has credited the late Reverend Dr. Hervis Bain as the designer of our national flag, something Darling claims simply isn't true.
They were in a state of mind trying to protect Hervis Bain, saying that Hervis Bain did, and there's nothing in the registry that supports Hervis Bain being responsible. My design of the flag is in a game. This is a game. And my copyright is copyright as a whole.
This board game, Darling says he designed in his mother's backyard with spare boards of wood and old spray paint cans in 1964 when he was 10. Darling has even taken his battle to court. He began proceedings against the Attorney General for copyright infringement by a writ of summons on March 10, 2010. Darling claims he has held the copyright for the design called Fund in the Bahamas since 1964, as he was just 10 years old when his sister wrote a letter to the Registrar General's Department requesting the copyright on his behalf. He alleges copies of his design were taken from the registrar's office where they were copyrighted and then used for the flag's design in 1973. Darling brought several court documents and letters from former prime ministers acknowledging him as the flag's designer, along with promises for payment.
My question is, when are they going to pay me? And when are they going to change history? Because the truth needs to be told.
Tired of approaching the situation diplomatically, Darling says he's now prepared to take a drastic step.
If they don't compensate me, I will have no other alternative but to sell the copyright for the design of the flag. So I'm weighing in my mind right now between three different nations that has a great concern, but I'm just waiting for which one of them that come closest to my figure.
The 70-year-old preacher says while it hurts him as a Bahamian, he feels after all these years, he has no choice.
If they want to deal with that, I don't have a problem dealing with that. And that's going to make Nassau go crazy. Nassau's going to go crazy. I'm telling you, it's going to hurt the country tremendously. We don't have to go to that route. Just simply pay me.
Now, our news contacted the family of the late Reverend Dr. Hervis Bain, who declined to comment but made reference to one of Bain's books, To All and Singular, Bahamian National Symbols. Reporting for our...
And that's our news. Didn't give the name. Forgive me. And I really need to give reference to the reporter who did that. But that's our news, and forgive me for it. Cut off beforehand. But I want to mention, and I see all the lines are lit up, right, that the good gentleman, the Reverend, right, says that he has 3 countries who are willing to buy the copyright of the Bahamas national flag.
Dear Reverend, they're going to buy it from you and they're going to give it to the Bahamas government. That's how governments stay friends. They're going to buy it from you and then they're going to say, look here. Psst, psst, psst.
Yeah, and he said he has three countries there and that he wants to sell the copyright.
Twigs and Cakes better be one of them, buddy.
Yeah. But we have a caller here, and so let me get the caller quickly, and then we go and analyze who is this Dr. Reverend Bishop Higgs. Go ahead. Oh, caller, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Producer, caller.
Good day. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good afternoon. Good morning to everyone.
Morning.
On a different subject, though, I was referring to when Raymond mentioned something about what the fruit was he referred to?
Aki.
No, the other one. What did he say he used to go searching for?
Oh, blueberry.
Blueberry. I never know about the blueberry, but I know about the pigeon plum. I don't know if he's getting it mixed up. He may not, but...
Is the pigeon plum blue?
The pigeon plum like dark color.
Dark. It look like a little baby peach?
No, not like a baby peach. It looks similar to blue, like how a blueberry would look.
Yeah, okay. See,
like how a blueberry look, but I born in the 60s, and I know my mom always say, you see the pigeon plum tree, but you don't see the pigeon plum.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I think it was more popular back in the day, but recently, I know the tree if I see it, but very seldom do you see the fruit on it.
I got
So
you.
I don't know if Bremen, thinking about pigeon plum, I never knew about any blueberry trees.
And I've never heard a local fruit referred to as blueberry.
Blueberry. I know pigeon plum.
Yeah, and then the one I'm thinking of, they call it something rude, ma and pa, something, but it's very small and it looks like a blue peach.
Yeah, no, but these ones are like blueberries, like how blueberry would look when you buy at the food store, but they grow on a tall, slim tree like.
All right.
Yeah, because I always hear my mom when we used to go riding, and she showed me different things. She would say, "You see the tree, but you don't see the fruit."
Because they like to hide. I bet you they hiding from the birds.
Yeah, but I don't know. I could be mistaken, but I think it's the pigeon plum
These
probably
referencing.
referring to.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Take care. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
And the reporter was Joshua Williams. I just got secure with that. But I still want to analyze, right? Who is this bishop? And I know that this particular bishop ran for politics before. He was a part of the Constitutional Party. And that he, on his platform, he is worth $48 million as his network worth, right? I want to put that in the record also. And I also want to analyze that it's the game and not the flag that was copywritten, because he didn't participate in the flag competition.
But see, two things. If he had participated in the flag competition, it wouldn't be a matter of whether he's owed compensation. It would be a question of whether he's owed recognition, right? Whether they must acknowledge that his submission or a part of his submission was used in the final final production, right? So that's one thing. It's a question of if he had submitted to a competition, he wouldn't necessarily be the owner of that which he submitted. The second thing is this: the question: did he copyright the game? And the image that he's claiming was then used and turned into the Bahamian flag was copyrighted as an image that is a part of his board game.
But even as we analyze that, it's the game itself that was copywritten because he had a game.
Right.
Do you copyright the look of the game?
Well, yeah, all of the parts of the game you copywriting.
The colors of the game you copyright?
No, the layout, the way that the colors are used in your game is copywritten, right? That's protected.
But let's go. We have some more callers here because I still want to analyze this some more. Go ahead, producer. Patch the caller through. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hey, Newry, what's going on?
Doing well.
All right, Aaron, what's up?
Morning. Everything good?
Yeah, man, 11 years. This is the name of Pigeon Plum.
I'm sorry? Or the name of
because I remember every time you come across a Pigeon Plum tree, they grow in abundance. I know one is, you familiar with the forest right there?
Yeah.
Okay, when you're coming down from the 66 there, you can see an open lot.
Mm-hmm.
And on right in that open lot next to the fence, you can see a tall tree. That's a pigeon plum tree.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Let's go to the next caller there to get the order through. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Good morning, sir. How you doing? I'm calling with your show.
Go ahead.
I heard one of your callers mention blueberry. We don't grow blueberry in the Bahamas. That fruit or that berry is called wild guava. It looks like almost like a pigeon plum, but it doesn't have seeds inside it like that. But it's a berry.
Now hold on. There is a wild guava that grows here that's red. That's
a kid growing up in the 60s. That's what we call it. I grew up in Baintown, Coconut Grove, and then we moved to Bambootown. And Bambootown was bush when we moved there when I was a child. And these berries used to grow wild in the bush. And then there was saprin, pigeon plum, darling plum. And then they had one which used to be red, what we used to call as a child, Santa Bungi.
Now listen, okay, since you used the word, the one that I found that was blue, a lecturer at the University of the Bahamas, an esteemed lecturer, told me that the blue one is tiny. It's like tiny, shaped like a peach. is blue, they call it Manpabungi.
No, I know, but the red one.
Okay, but let's not use that B word no more.
What I can do, if you want me, go pick a couple of the bush and bring it to you all for you all to see. I can do that.
Yeah, but do that. I like free things. I appreciate that.
Because the harvest on the wild guavas are winding down now. I was picking them and eating them when I go in the bush because I live in the bush now, Uncle Michael now.
And what color is it?
It's like a what you call a blackberry.
Okay, black.
Because the blackberry is like a mulberry. It start off red and then it turn purple.
No, but these ones is be green skin first, and when they ripe, they are black.
Okay.
And extremely sweet. Just like saprin.
All right. Look here.
You eat saprin before?
I don't even know what saprin is. I may have eaten it though.
Saprin is them trees would grow on Mile of Butler Highway, where one part of the leaf is gold and the next part of the leaf is dark green. When we were small, we used to call it soap bush. That's what the people.
Okay, soap bush. Okay, yeah. I know.
Yeah, they have some sweet berry on it called saprin, and they grow wild in the Bahamas, even along Carmichael and Mile of Butler Highway now, but they put some, and some along, Bahama Boulevard now.
Man, listen, I was in Johnson Road, and I find wild passion fruit. The small little set, it have a bonnet.
Yeah, I grow passion fruit in my yard
this the wild set, the tiny, and it have a whole bonnet on it to protect it, so when it dry out, the fruit don't hit the ground. It just sit in the bonnet and wait for you to come collect it.
Yeah. I have purple passion fruit, orange, and red passion fruit.
Oh, thank you very much, caller. I'm impressed so much.
Producer, take his number.
Yeah, go ahead.
Producer, take his number, please.
So many people want to talk about the trees. There's another reason why we need to define ourselves. There's a thirst of Bahamians who want to define ourselves and talk about us and celebrate us, but there's no record of it.
And they want to ensure that the value, the knowledge that they have can be shared with the whole, right? Because it's not valuable unless it can be used by the collective. And we thank you for that.
Let's patch the next caller through there, producer, if you can. 1 minute for me. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Hey, good morning, Aaron. I'm Miss Newry again.
Go ahead.
Good morning.
I know, but that berry the lady was describing, it is called pigeon plum. I grew up on the island of Andros.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go for crab, between that and the custard apple, that's what I'm eating.
Nice.
Yeah. So I know about those. And the gentleman who was talking about the fly and the game that he produced and all this other stuff, you all need to bring him on, please. I would like to hear more from him on what it is that he seems to think that the Bahamas government owes him. So I really would like to hear more, because if it's his design, I would like the questions that you guys were asking each other. Could you guys find him and bring him on, or go to him if he's too old to come out or whatever, please?
Why not? We'll look for the good bishop.
Yes, please.
Okay. Producer, patch the next caller through for me too, please. Let's get all of them patched through.
And tell the caller you're getting the info from, he have orange and red passion fruit. We can talk to him.
Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me? Caller going once. Good. There's no caller on this one? Okay. Sorry about that, caller. But yeah, it does seem that Bahamians are eager to know about themselves.
Here's something I garnered just now from all those calls. A lot of the fruit that we say, it's Jamaican, actually, they're all West African, right? They came over with all of us.
Yes.
And so the question is, at what point did our societies drift apart in terms of what are the fruit that we cling to, that we preserve, that are really special, or indigenous, right? That we maintain them in our space since we got here. It's like the merchant imagination drove that diversion. June plum, still popular in the Bahamas as a big Jamaican fruit. Ackee, big Jamaican thing. And some of the things we talked about today are known to be big in Jamaica. And then we realized that the island people and plenty of people used to eat these things. Mm-hmm. And the question is, well, why don't we see them anymore? Because the fruit shelves of the spaces have been replaced with imported fruit and fruit from jurisdictions outside of the Bahamas in the region.
Let's patch this caller through too. Go ahead, producer. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Yeah. What I want to say, right? I know pigeon plum and I know berry. I know berries, okay? Now, in Lightfoot Key, right, on Collins Avenue, even when I used to go to school, we used to stop in the bush to get blueberry, okay? So I know what I'm speaking of, and I'm speaking from the early 60s. Okay?
Yes,
I
sir.
just know. So I
We just
I
need
don't
to have
wanna-
we have a show on it all
Right.
together.
And it only sounds, don't watch nothing, Bremen. It only sounds like we rowing because we don't have a system and properly curated spaces to have these conversations in. The conversation about the fruit and our experiences is equally as valuable as the conversations about the language, and the curation of the language is equally as important as about the art and the music, all of it.
Okay. I see we have one more caller here. Producer Pastor caller. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Hello, morning.
Good morning.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
I think the national fruit should be coconut. Because you can get coconut year round. Everybody, coconut all about. I think the national fruit should be a popular fruit. Something you can see every day.
The concern is who should determine this?
The Bahamian people.
Because
Who
nobody.
determines the government? The Bahamian people. We need to decide and take things to ourselves. When we find that people are not doing nothing for us, we need to get as a group of people and decide who decide that the flamingo would be the national bird, the national bird.
And that's another narrative that we don't know. That so many information is
Now,
lacking.
that thing with that
for us.
gentleman with y'all was playing about that gentleman with the flag. He's fighting a losing battle. He waited too long. He waited too long. It's too late for him to get into the history book. He waited too long. He should have done that some 40 years ago, some 45 years ago. 50 years later, now coming around, where he was in exile or someplace locked down, that he couldn't come out all that time and say something about that flag.
But this,
why is it now so?
But let me ask you this: if he can prove that he did created a flag, do you believe that we should compensate him?
Yes, if he could. But how can he? By word of mouth?
That's a different.
He has something written down. Because I can bring a picture of flag, an old flag from 20 years ago and say, man, see the flag guy designed this, and they teach
But
this.
caller, let me say this. I can let you hang up, and I want you to listen to this. So I let you listen to this. So in a different news report, the gentleman said he wrote Prime Minister, former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram, and Hubert Ingram agreed that he did it, right? When the news people called Mr. Ingram responded, no comment. What does that mean? No comment. What does that insinuate? No comment. Right? I just saying that.
You mean Ingram the lawyer?
Ingram the lawyer. No comment. Right. I mean, no comment is a safe word.
It's the safest word.
But leave me now wondering. No comment.
Right. Like.
Do you know about this claim? No comment.
Right.
Yeah.
Like why wouldn't you say it's categorically false? Or
yes.
Or yes, it's true.
It's true. You know, it leaves me wondering. You know, as my imaginations go wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say they ask him, "Do you know about the claim? Do you know? Did he write you? Did you respond to him?" The good German said that the former prime minister promised him $20 million and $100,000 a year, some kind of royalty.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get the no comment.
Yeah.
And then the good German said that he wrote not only Hubert Ingram, but he also wrote Sir Lyndon Pinglin. And both, according to him, acknowledged that, yes, somebody borrowed, lifted,
and
assisted.
What it shows is that we need independent bodies independent of politics to be in charge of these things, to be the holders of culture and history, right? We can't leave it to the politicians to be responsible for these spaces. Like the last caller said, we got to take it up ourselves. We got to be prepared to do the things that are important and valuable to us.
We go into the news. Let me read this. At the end of the day, we just need to decide on national stuff and start the discussion. Have a year-long debate. Next year, July, everything should be settled. And they end with that. Guardian Radio with the AM with C.A. Newry. Aaron Green was with me. Have a wonderful day.